first of all, welcome. It's really great to have all you here. It feels so good to be doing reunions again in person and getting to assemble people on campus. And it's really wonderful to have you all back here to see each other and celebrate your reunions. I think what I'd like to do with this session is actually spend most of the time just hearing your questions and having a discussion. But I'll spend a few minutes at the beginning just kind of giving you a little bit of an update on the school and telling you how things are going. I thought I just might start by saying, so yesterday we had the first faculty senate meeting of the year at Stanford, and my colleague, the dean of the medical school, spoke, and he said something that just really resonated with me, which was he was talking about the pretty challenging last 32 months that we've had at Stanford, including 4 entire quarters that were pretty much on Zoom when we had no undergraduates on the campus. The MBA students and the MSX students were here on campus, but classes were largely on Zoom. And the faculty were teaching from home on their computers. And he said that his dominant feeling, looking back over the last 32 months, was gratitude. There was gratitude for the incredible effort and adaptability and resilience that faculty showed in having to rethink teaching after doing it the same way for years and sometimes decades. That students showed in having goodwill to get through the pandemic, that our staff showed in having to navigate things, and the goodwill that alumni showed in helping to support the school through a pretty tough, and the university through a pretty tough time. And so that really resonated with me, and even more than gratitude for the period going through COVID. I have felt tremendous gratitude being back on campus. I came to Stanford for the first time as an undergraduate. I was 17 years old, and I've been here, spent most of my life since then here on campus, 22 years on the faculty, 6 years here at the GSB as dean, and basically have loved every minute of being on this campus for all that time, but have never felt more appreciation for the campus than I have this year and last year when we brought people back. And there's lots of reasons for that, actually, but part of it is, the GSB is, in particular, the university as a whole, but the GSB in particular, it is a unique place. There is really nowhere else like it, I think, anywhere else in the world. It is a place where, on the one hand, we have these unbelievable, brilliant, scholars and faculty who are milling around. Some of you I know this morning came and saw Hito Imbens, our faculty member, speak. Hito won the Nobel Prize in Economics last year. His colleague, Bob Wilson, won it the year before. This week, Carolyn Bertozzi, our colleague in chemistry, won the Nobel Prize. That's who you get to be on the faculty with at Stanford and learn from in classrooms. It's amazing. And the GSB we have more than our fair share of those people here, even relative to the chemistry department and the engineering school. And then, you pair that with the incredible leadership potential and action orientation and ambition of the students who come into the school every year. And that mix of great ideas and great leadership potential, ambition, drive to action, there's just about nowhere on the planet that puts those things together in one place. But of course, what makes it not just kind of a bunch of independent people doing interesting things is all being together and the bumping into each other and the interacting, and whether it's students connecting or people in classrooms or just you all being here running into students to faculty, the mixing it up that happens on the campus. That's where the alchemy is, the magic of this place, the magic of Stanford. And missing that for 18 months just really brought back how special that is and how fortunate we are to get to be here in that environment, and how much potential there is. The potential energy of having those interactions is just incredible. So it's really great to have you back, and this is the first real reunion back in kind of full on post-COVID that we've had, and so it feels so good to see all of you here and get to interact with you all and give you a chance to be together. And I hope you get a sense of just how vibrant the campus feels right now. It feels incredible to walk in every day. Let me say one more thing, and then I'll just open up for discussion, which is if I had to pick one other, Lloyd started yesterday, and Lloyd Miner from the Med School said his one word for his feeling right now was gratitude, and I said that resonated. If I had to pick one word, it would be opportunity. That we have been through, just in the last few years, such a period of extraordinary change in the world and change in business, change in society, politics, and a time when there's, first of all, been incredible changes in technology. I mean, we're going to go through a rethinking of work this year for the first time in 100 years, probably, of how people interact and work. Societal changes, more awareness about issues like inequality, the role of business in fostering opportunity, climate change. This year at Stanford, we have a new school for the first time in 75 years, a school of sustainability, and we're doing all kinds of stuff this year with the sustainability school around business sustainability. I know some of you came to the session earlier today. And when you have a period of just incredible change and disruption in the world, and when people are sort of thinking in particular about the role of business and addressing those changes, addressing some of the challenges we have, that's a great time to be at school. Like, that's just a great time to be on campus, because you've got people who are thinking, they want to debate, they want to talk about it, they want to come up with solutions, and that just is such a great feeling of opportunity right now. And you're going to get to hear in a few minutes from Anat Admani, one of our faculty, who has been really at the forefront of this and set up a initiative at school, the Corporation Society Initiative, about 5 years. She really anticipated, actually, a lot of the changes that are happening, thinking about the purpose of corporations and the role of business. So she'll talk about some of the things that she's been doing, and that's been a big area of activity for us at the school. So as we think about the curriculum and faculty research and our engagement with the university and with the world. So let me stop there. And I'll just open up, and I'd love to, I'm happy to hear any questions you have about just about anything. So I might as well, I think I'll just leave it to you to sort of drive the direction we go in. Okay.
So, John, thank you. Thank you, John, for amazing work that's being done at the school. And I wanted to ask you, especially with the opening of the new School of Sustainability this past week, what the vision is for the GSB and interaction with the new school and addressing urgent issues in the climate crisis, and specifically, if you could comment on the student protest about the university, call for university divestment from fossil fuels.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Gordon. That's a great question and broad. So let me actually take the first part, and then I can talk about the specific issue or investment. So actually, before I actually talk about our relationship with the School of Sustainability, let me just actually step back and say, this year, one of our major initiatives that we're going to launch this year, and probably my top priority for this year, is to launch an initiative we've been calling the Business, Government, and Society Initiative. And it's organized around a set of pillars, topics where we think the business school could have a big impact on issues that are at the intersection of business and society. One of those is sustainability, business sustainability. One is around the effects of technology governing and guiding technological change in ways that will be broadly beneficial for humanity. One of them is around the future of markets and institutions. You'll hear more about that from Anat when she talks. Governance issues, purpose of the corporation, institutions that underlie business. The sustainability piece of that, Stanford made a decision 2 years ago that we were going to make a major investment campus-wide in climate and sustainability. And that was a decision made by our president, Mark Levin, and the provost. And there was a committee that looked at different ways we could do that. And they actually came back with two models, an interesting university governance story. They came up with two models for how could the university make a huge push in sustainability, be the leading university. One model was what they were calling a college. So that is, every school would make kind of a push, and then you would network them across the campus. And the other was to create a school. And we decided to create a school, which I was a school advocate. And the reason I thought the school would be great is the school is an ecosystem. A school has faculty. You have to pick what research you're going to do, what you're going to teach, and so forth. And so 2 years ago, we made that decision. The president made the decision. We're going to have a school, first school at Stanford in 75 years. And now it's launched, and with incredible philanthropy from John Doerr in a big way. As soon as that decision was made, there was a question of how will the other schools be involved? It's how you need to have business involved if you're going to think about climate change, energy transition, innovation that's going to scale solutions, technical solutions that might come out of great engineering and science. And so we got started at the business school having discussions initially among the faculty, but then including lots more people, how we're going to do that. And we came up with a plan for an initiative that Bill Barnett, one of our faculty members, has been leading. And now it's a joint initiative with the Doerr School. And so when the Doerr School opened in September, we had 6 faculty who took joint appointments over in the Doerr School. We have 70 MBA students who are doing a joint degree with the Doerr School. We have a whole set of classes that are getting introduced this year. We're running 17, this is actually crazy, I don't know why we're doing this at this scale, but we're running 17 conferences in business and sustainability, one every 2 weeks all through the year. So climate finance, accounting, net zero operations, it's a little overwhelming actually. I think Anat is running one on PG&E and wildfires that I've got to figure out what I'm gonna say at. But I will figure it out, Anat, don't worry. And then we're going to announce in a couple of weeks a new sustainability entrepreneurship program that we've put together with the Doerr School. So I just think I'm really excited, and the kind of vision that we've had about the partnership is that this is an opportunity, as we have with other Stanford schools, to marry the incredible disciplinary expertise in energy and innovation and technology in the rest of campus with the leadership, entrepreneurship, management of the business school, and that's just a dynamite combination. That's the combination that students need to be successful, and so that's to solve problems. You asked about the divestment from the sort of issues around. There was a question about whether. So there's been a lot of debate at Stanford about forming this school about whether Stanford should take money from fossil fuel companies. And there's I would say opinions are divided at the university. There's a very vocal group of students and some alumni and faculty who feel very strongly that we shouldn't take money from energy companies. And then there's other people who have a different view that the university should engage broadly. And we have the principle of academic freedom, which says faculty pretty much have the right to work on whatever they want. And that discussion is going to play out this year, basically. The dean of the new school has issued a statement last year with some principles and is doing a listening tour, and they'll have to sort that out at the new school over the course of the year how they want to do that. Yeah.
John, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal in the last week or so about decline in applications. Yeah. Major business schools. Stanford was not mentioned in the article. What's the experience here, and does that suggest a change in the profile of people who are applying?
Yeah. So the thing to understand about business school applications, which I think all of you know at some level, is we're very, very tied to the labor market. When the labor market is hot, business school applications are down, and when the labor market cools off, business school applications are up. We're counter-cyclical. And there's, for obvious reasons, and last year, the labor market was smoking hot, and our applications were down, and I think they were down by 16% or so. And this year, the labor market, I guess it's really hard to tell, depending on the numbers you look at, how you look at them. They're might be very tight or it might be cooling off. So I guess we're going to find out in the next couple of weeks what's going on. In terms of our class composition, the truth is it hasn't really mattered. Our applications, I think we're down off our peak, which was maybe 5 years ago or something. We had our peak year 4 years ago, and then we were down a little bit. COVID was very weird. With applications, we were down a little bit. Other schools were hugely volatile. We have two things going for us. One is we take a very small number of students. Almost everybody we admit these days comes. About 90% of the students we admit come. And yield is really high. And so we're very fortunate in that sense. And we could have a class of 2,000. That was fantastic. And then we have a class of 420. So we're in a pretty good position. Other schools are much more vulnerable to fluctuations in the market than we are. But I'll just say one more thing about that. Where it shows up for us, so there has been a lot of discussion about whether there's a sort of secular decline in sort of 2-year residential MBA programs. And there has been, actually, if you look at numbers. Now, part of that is that statistic is about overall MBA programs. And it would be a little bit like if you asked, Stanford's dean of admissions for undergraduate and said, college enrollment is declining in the US. Are you worried that Stanford won't have any students in the undergraduate class? And he'd be like, well, no, we had 60,000 applicants. Well, I don't know how many he had, but he'd sort of, it's sort of conflating things that are a little bit different. That's a little bit true for us too. But it is a reflection of something that is affecting us, which is career paths have changed. And so in fields like finance, in consulting, in tech companies, you can go far in your career without ever stopping to get an MBA. So an MBA for many years, for some people perceived it as it was a necessary rung on the ladder. And I don't think anyone thinks of it that way. Now, the good thing is we never thought about it that way, and I hope none of you ever thought about it that way. We've always thought of the MBA at Stanford as not how do you get up one rung on the ladder. It's about how do you see every possible path you could take and get the skills to do any of those things. So that change in overall MBA, the sort of secular changes in MBA programs, in some ways have played to our advantage because no student comes in thinking, I need to get this degree to get to my next job. They can get to the next job just fine. They come in thinking, how is this going to set me up for a whole career of different opportunities? And in some ways, that's good. That plays to what we were doing anyway in our program. But we still keep a close eye on the year-to-year admissions numbers. Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. You referred to quite a few changes in motion globally. Can you maybe kind of unpack a little bit what are the top changes among them that really make you think about what's the strategy or how do you deliver the ambition of the school?
Yeah. So, well, I'll just mention a few. I think one, we already talked about climate and sustainability, and that's a big priority for us, and certainly with this incredible opportunity with the university having a new school to really be at the forefront of thinking about the response to climate change and energy transition. And I think that's a great opportunity for us, whether it's entrepreneurship or thinking about finance, operations, different aspects of management. The school Stanford is deeply wedded to Silicon Valley. And so changes in technology, particularly in digital technologies, they come from here. Like we are the source of so much of that innovation and change. And to my mind, one of the big things that has happened here, one is just there's been such a revolution in areas like machine learning and artificial intelligence and data and algorithms. And that's a great opportunity for our students because the combination of the technological change and the business model changes, that intersection is such a powerful place to be, and it's a place where our students have the opportunity to get to. But it's also an area where, when I came to Stanford as a faculty member 20 years ago, and I worked on the economics of technology, it felt in Silicon Valley like we were really divorced from the world. We're just creating these great things. There's a lot of bad stuff going on, but not here. Here's where we just create these amazing products that make everyone's lives better. Everyone here has a more sophisticated, complex view of the world now. Or at least I think we do. Or at least we need to have one. So that's a really important area for us. And it's an important area for the whole university to be thinking about the potential from technology, but also the complexities of how do you guide the direction of technology, what are the second order effects, and so forth. So just to pick two, those would be, Anat's going to talk about sort of another broader set of governance, but I'll let her do the talking on that one. But if I had to pick two or three, those would be them. Okay, in the front.
So I just want to come back to your early presentation. Obviously, you went through a huge change this last couple of years in the way teaching was done, in the way students interacted, in all the aspects of how that happened. And now you've come back. What do you see as the key takeaways from that in terms of going forward? What did we learn? Just as you said, we're changing the way we work and rethinking the last 100 years. Is that happening in the education process, and how?
Yeah. Okay, that is such a great question. So during COVID, I led there was a university group, the Long Range Recovery Group, and I led that group with a faculty member from the HNS, and that was the question that was asked of this group, and we had people from across the university, and we basically came back and said we had two answers to this question. One of the answers was this is a time of incredible innovation. I mean, it really did force everybody to think about how to teach, how to use classroom time, how to use technology. And it was it's a revelation what you could do with technology. Who knew that on Friday night, the provost could send an email at Stanford and say, on Monday morning, we will be teaching online. And then on Monday morning, we were teaching online. The whole school was online. We did it over a weekend. Of course, we were terrible at it when we started. I mean, truly bad. The first day of COVID, after we went online, I was giving a guest lecture in one of the classes. It's a class taught by Peter Wendell and Eric Schmidt, and I was their guest. And we get into the class, and I welcome the class. And I say, welcome to the GSB Online on Zoom. And they're waving at me, and I'm like, why are they waving at me? And they say, the camera is that way. So we got better over 18 months. And some of that's coming back, I think, into the MBA classroom. People are using more, Zoom to bring speakers in. More, they did lots of video. People made videos. They used that, more flipped classroom types of stuff. The place where we're really using it actually is in our shorter, flexible programs, executive programs. It's been a huge. We had to stop all our executive programs, basically. We have a big executive education business. It generates about $80 million a year in revenue. 90% of it was on-campus summer programs. It went to zero during COVID for 2 summers. And instead, we just basically spent 18 months just trying out new things. And some of them were not successful, and some of them were amazing. So I'll just give you a couple examples. So one is, we started this type of program in executive education where these are just 2 or 3 day short, intensive refreshers on a particular subject that faculty are keen to talk about. Turns out it's very hard to get people to come for 2 days to talk about fintech or talk about AI or talk about Bitcoin or something whatever the faculty are interested in. Getting a global audience to spend 2 days on Zoom, kind of just diving into a topic of excitement to faculty. No problem. So this year, we're going to work with the engineering school, and we're going to set up a platform for faculty across Stanford to offer these Stanford intensives. We could have done that before COVID, but we probably would never have come up with something, we wouldn't have bothered, or just wouldn't have come to mind. And so now, some things like that. So that's been one great source of innovation. Okay, that was the first lesson, kind of a revelation for technology. The second revelation was what I started with, which is MBA education is just much better in person. I mean, it is just like people were talking before COVID, maybe the MBA will be a hybrid degree, people want to Zoom in. Turns out, no, our students do not want to Zoom in. Like, they spent the whole COVID in the residences chafing against the COVID restrictions. And when they came off, you just see that that is like, it's all about interacting. It's all about the people you meet and the faculty and engaging in the classroom and mixing it up. And it's an affirmation of the value of what happens here on the campus. And part of the lesson of COVID is we just got to get back to doing that, get people back together. Oh my gosh, okay. How about in the back? You had your hand up for a while.
You talk about great opportunities, and we all know from our education here, the flip side of that are the risks. What are the 2 or 3 risks that are biggest in your mind about all this?
Yeah. I mean, there's always, I mean, there's always risks. You know, when I think about sort of the things that worry me, a lot of things that worry me are just about sort of, people, the people on the campus. You're responsible for people, and so that's during COVID, that was certainly something that I worried a lot about, and even now, I worry about issues like student mental health and issues like our students and our faculty and folks like that. They came through a hard time, and it's still pretty challenging. Institutionally, I think in some sense at Stanford, the biggest risks at Stanford are that we become, I don't want to say this in a way that's going to sound bad for our peer schools, but like the best thing about Stanford, the thing that brought me here, particularly brought me here as a faculty member and kept me here on the faculty for 20 years instead of going somewhere else, is that Stanford is a relentlessly forward-looking place. Stanford is very unusual in higher education. If you think about higher education is how many industries are there where the top 3 organizations in 1705 are still in the top 5 today. Higher education is like that. And what's amazing about Stanford is, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, Stanford was a regional university. And it just has had this incredible ascent over many, many years, partly because of the people like you who went through the school and have gone on and added luster to the reputation of the institution, and because of the faculty and the current students and all that. And what has driven that is that it's a very forward-looking, entrepreneurial, innovative, not afraid of change place. And so the biggest risk to us is that somehow we would rest on our laurels, or we would be complacent, or we would start spending too much time sort of trying to protect the things we have instead of keeping the drive and the forward-looking and the opportunity mindset that has made this place so special.
Remember the recruiting rush of the summer with the shrimp cocktail and the buffets, and especially the second-year recruiting rush.
Yeah.
You talked about how people are rethinking work. Yeah. How has recruiting changed from when it was then? That is such a great question.
How has recruiting changed? That is such a great question. So here's the interesting thing about the GSB. This is in recruiting. This was true even before COVID. At basically all of our peer schools, 2/3 of the students get their jobs through on-campus recruiting and through their summer internship. We were in a situation before COVID where 10% of our students were taking their summer internship and turning that into a job. And only about 1/3 of our students or less were getting their jobs through on-campus recruiting. Instead, we had moved already, before COVID, basically to a world of kind of network job search, where our students were, instead of kind of waiting for the recruiters to come to them, were basically looking around through Alumni. It was a huge resource. Thank you for returning people's calls. I'm going to come back to that in a second, actually, because you're so important, actually, in this. Or they were looking at LinkedIn or searching companies and then going out and proactively trying to find places. Now, some of them still go through recruiting for consulting firms or private equity or what have you, but a lot of them were already in this kind of new world of decentralized network search. We had to go through a huge transition in the way we support careers in our career management center over the last couple of years to support that. And COVID, I think, just sort of a little bit accelerated that. I mean, recruiting now has moved to Zoom in large part, at least the first rounds of interviews and so forth. But our students were kind of ahead of the curve in this, as they often are. The last thing I'll just say about this, with about the role you all play, you play a big role in our job placements. And I'll say two things about it. One is, just to come back to the theme of gratitude I started with, during COVID, when we started the pandemic, we had a catastrophe with the student job searches because the internships got canceled and the job market dried up. And when we were in March of 2020, our Career Center came to me and to the rest of the folks in the school leadership and said, we don't have enough jobs just posted at the Career Center to get our students jobs. We're about 150 jobs short and internships short. And at the time I wrote out to all of you and to the other alumni and I said, we need help. And I have to say that was one of the most amazing responses that I've ever seen from an alumni population. The GSB alumni created 300 jobs and internships in about 3 weeks. And all of our students got great opportunities. That was incredible. I mean, seriously incredible. And you know, one of my colleagues who teaches here, has taught here for a long time, and is an alum of another school on the East Coast that sometimes people think of as a pure school. I hope I'm not being recorded. No, I am being recorded. But I'll tell the story anyway because it's a good story. So he said, he was in my office today and he said, you know, at my alma mater, the alumni book is really thick. It's hugely thick. He said, any industry you look in, there's tons of people. But no one calls you back. He said, the GSB book's kind of thinner, pretty thick, but not as thick. But everyone calls you back. And that's amazing, and that's such a huge asset for our students. I just told our students today, because they were asking about what's going to happen to the labor market this year. That's a real ace in the hole for them. So you all are the ones who make that happen. So thank you for everything you do. And thank you for everything you do more generally for the school. We're so lucky to have this alumni population. And it's so great to get to see you here today. And I hope you have a great weekend.